I make a lot of different varietals. I make Chardonnay. I make two types of Chardonnay, oaked and unoaked Chardonnay. I make Sauvignon Blanc, Rosé, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Syrah, Malbec, Port, Zinfandel, Primitivo. We process all our fruit here in the warehouse, so in the back area.
So everything's done here?
Everything's done here, yes. It is really an amazing growing region. We're so lucky that we get these really unique diurnal shifts during the day and winds that blow in at night from the San Francisco Bay that cool down the vines, cool down the valley. And the Livermore Valley is actually planted like from a northeast, southwest direction. And so when the winds come through at night, it just cools everything down. So it just grows the most incredible fruit here. You could pretty much grow anything here, and so it's great. But in the valley, we would definitely love our Cab Franc. You can go into pretty much any tasting room and meet the winemaker there. Yeah. I'm always pouring in my tasting room. It's very rare I'm not here, but you know, even in our little area of Vasco Row, almost all the winemakers are on site in their tasting rooms. Well, the only wine that my family really drank when I was young was Carlo Rossi, and they loved their Carlo Rossi, so it was always on the dinner table and in the kitchen, and my grandfather would just practically drink it right out of the jug sometimes as he was walking past. So that was all the experience I had with wine, but when I first got into wine, I worked in San Francisco as a legal assistant at a law firm out there, and one of my coworkers, I made friends with one of my coworkers, and she was really into wine, and so she was managing a tasting room out here, and every time we would leave to go to, you know, shopping or a movie or something we'd have planned, she'd always have to stop by the tasting room, and then, you know, of course some chaos would ensue, and I would get shoved behind a bar, and then, you know, she'd say, pour these wines, so I'd be there like pouring wine all afternoon, and then we would never make it to the movie or out shopping, but it was always so fun. I love socializing with people, so, and that was where I discovered that I had like this really unique palate. I could pick up all these things in the wines that nobody else could pick up, and even the winemaker was pretty blown away by it. So one day he asked if I could help him make some blends, and so I helped him make a few blends, yes. Eventually I was helping, like, you know, him harvest fruit. Like, he had a little patch of Petit Syrah. I'd helped him harvest around the tasting room and such. And then one night he was pressing port in the garage after we had an event, and I'd had a little bit too much to drink, so I decided I would stay there and help. And I left at 2 in the morning, and I was driving home, and I had all my windows down because it was so hot, and I just had this like spiritual thing come over me where it was like, you know, it was just so sticky, and I had Petit Syrah all over me, and I'm like, this is just what I should do forever. Like, I just never have felt like this before. So I woke up the next day, made some phone calls. I contacted Nancy Tenuta, who we were doing. Nancy Tenuta owns a bigger winery out here where she has a lot of alternating proprietorships in the back, and we used to do all our bottling there. And she agreed to let me, you know, go there and make a small batch of wine if I wanted. And so she helped put me in contact with a small vineyard called Thatcher Bay, and he sells to a lot of smaller, you know, independent winemakers, home winemakers and such. And so I bought some fruit from him, and next thing you know, I was making my own wine in the back of Tenuta. I started out making Cabernet Sauvignon, and I was just so lucky. There were just some amazing, incredible winemakers there from Livermore. So at Three Steve's Winery, Steve Zaganti and Steve Berman were there at the time. You know, they were doing an alternating proprietorship before they opened their winery. Another gentleman named Shabas Sakal, who makes wine out in Sonoma at On Guard Winery. He's making like 90 to 98 point wines out there, and he was there as well, and also Nancy's winemaker, and they all just really mentored me when they saw how serious I was about it, So I was just super lucky to be, it's really serendipitous, like my whole journey, but I was so lucky to just be there with those guys. And so Steve Berman, actually, he was always, you know, going to do his punch downs at the same time I was doing my punch downs, because I was still working in the city full time. So doing the commute back and forth. So I would commute to the city in the morning and then come back at night to punch down my fruit. And so he was also doing the same thing. So we were always in there in the morning and in the evening, and I would just ask him like a ton of questions. And I also have a research-based degree. So after I would talk to one of them, I would go home and just do my own research. And that's kind of how I learned to make wine. And it was just a really fun place to be. You know, we had this really great camaraderie. So I just fell in love with it there too. Finally, they all left to go start their own wineries, and that was kind of when I, you know, sort of thought, well, this is really fun. Like I was just in awe of them. So yes, I am the winemaker, the owner, the janitor, the accountant. So it's a good thing. It's something you really have to love doing, because, you know, I do love everything about it. And, you know, even when I'm making the wine in the back, it's great. But when I'm up here dealing with customers, that's also really, really fun, because, you know, meeting all these new people and just telling them about my wines and about the valley. And so, you know, I really enjoy every bit of it. Here I might work from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, but maybe from 5 to 9 I'm having music on the patio. And so, you know, everyone's on the patio and we're all dancing and having fun. And, you know, I'm going around talking to everyone and asking if they're having a good time. And, you know, and then, you know, you just clean up at the end and you go home, and I drive home, almost always drive home with the sense that I had like a really wonderful day. I do. Actually, I have great help in my tasting room. And I work with gentleman, Tracy Baker, and also my friend Sonia Filipski. And they actually worked with me over at the very first winery that I started out at here in Livermore Valley. And so they work in my tasting room with me, and my friend Chuck helps me make the wines in the back. He's a home winemaker, so he comes and helps me process everything. And then I have a lot of family that comes and helps. My son comes and helps during harvest. My cousin, last year he came out from Reno and spent about 10 days here. So yeah, and we all help each other. You know, I'm in the same winery with Frank Favalora. He also has his winery here, so we're kind of like roommates. So a lot of times, if I can't do punch downs, he'll help me. You know, he'll do my punch downs in the morning, or I'll do his at night. We help each other. You know, last year I helped him harvest all the Zinfandel in the vineyard, and then he's working, so I'm fermenting the wines for us. You know, and so just things like that, and even collaboration amongst other wineries. And here at our place, we don't have a press or a destemmer. So when I get my fruit, I take it over to Rhonda Wood's place, which is just down my back alley. So I drive it down there on the forklift, and she puts it in. We destem everything over there and then bring it back here, and I ferment everything in the back. And then when it's ready to get pressed, I'll take it back over to Rhonda's and press it over there. Or sometimes I'll make wine and press next door to Ocasio with Dave Hendrickson, who's the winemaker there. And we bottle our wines next door. So it's just definitely a labor of love amongst the community. Ever since I started making wine, I started right here in Livermore. I made my first vintage in 2011, which was the very first time I ever made wine. I made 4 tons of Cabernet Sauvignon. And I pretty much called myself, when I first started out, a home winemaker, because I learned a lot about making wine from other winemakers. I mean, I just recently been in school at UC Davis, getting my winemaking certification. So I was self-taught basically, and taught by other mentors around me. So just very similar to other home winemakers. So, but it is a really incredible experience, and I'm so grateful to have the gift of, making wine. So I feel like it's just a great way to, just be in tune with, your own thoughts and your product that you're making. It's not like, making, I'm sure I could make a million different products if I wanted, but wine is just so, it's just so incredibly alive and, ever changing. So drop on in. You can call, make an appointment if you like, but we have walk-ins. We have a huge patio out here. We are located on Vasco Row, and Vasco Row is it's on the east end of Livermore Valley on South Vasco Road. It's an industrial hub full of, there's 9 wineries, 2 breweries, and 1 distillery here. So it's and we have a lot of food trucks all around, so there's always food to eat. There's a lot of live music, a lot of collaboration amongst winemakers. Just in our little courtyard here, there's 4 wineries, and I'm almost always here on site, waiting to greet you when you come in the door. www.rosafierrocellars.com.